Hello everyone. This video is going to cover exemplification essays. This is the first essay that you write in English 101. So, what is exemplification? Well, exemplification sounds kind of like the word example, which is what this essay pretty much does. It's probably the most simple, most straightforward essay you will encounter in your academic career. It's also one that you will continue to use in future essays because all types of essays stem from or build from this basic exemplification construct. So, being able to write an exemplification essay is going to help you build on bigger types of essays in the future. The whole point of an exemplification essay is to provide examples to prove your point. There are lots of different types of examples that you can use. You can use facts that you already know, events that you are aware of, statistics that you are aware of, people, if you know of people that fit the category or an example of, let's say you were doing a paper about heroes, and your thesis statement is something about how heroes are everyday people, then you could talk about how maybe a firefighter is an example of a hero, or a healthcare worker is an example of a hero. Quotations and anecdotes are also types of examples, but these are things that you should only use if your instructor allows it. I do not want you to use quotations in this essay. I also do not want you to use anecdotes. An anecdote is a short story that you have experienced, and I don't want you using anecdotes because sometimes students get confused between anecdotes and formal writing. So I don't want us to use any anecdotes. And I don't want you to use any quotations. If you have to research your topic, you don't know enough about it to write this paper. This is not a research paper. If your first instinct is to Google something, choose a different topic. Whatever type of example you use, though, remember that your example needs to be representative. So what does that mean? Representative means that the examples that you use must represent the majority or the average of an idea. So, for instance, you might hear a heavy drinker deny the harmful effects of heavy drinking because he knows someone who drank every day and lived into his 90s. Okay, well, that's not a good example because we know scientists have proven that if you drink heavily every day, there are harmful side effects. You will have a host of health problems. The expected outcome for the average person who drinks heavily every day is early death and health problems. So just because someone knows one person who lived into his 90s, and he drank heavily, does not mean that heavy drinking does not cause health problems. It has to be something that the majority of people understand and represent. Beware of these common pitfalls. Beware that you don't end up comparing two things. You should stick to your thesis. Be sure you're not describing a process or how to do something. Be sure that you're not creating a cause and effect argument. And then if you use anecdotes in the future, be sure you use several small stories to prove your point instead of one large story. If you use one large story as an anecdote, then it becomes a narrative or a story instead of an exemplification essay. Using transition words can help make sure you avoid some of those pitfalls. So I've listed some transitions here that you can use inside your body paragraph. So for instance, another instance of, for example, another illustration of, all of these are transition phrases that you can use in between your examples to kind of move your paragraphs along. This slide is basically kind of a roadmap for what your essay should kind of look like. Your title should explain the core of the essay in just a couple of words. Your introduction paragraph should spark interest in readers so that they want to continue reading it. And it should end with your thesis statement. Your thesis statement should be the last sentence of your introduction paragraph. And that thesis statement should explain what it is and why you are writing about it. So you've already turned in a thesis statement. So use the thesis statement that you turned in for week 1 to write this exemplification paper. So because we've already talked about thesis statements, I'm going to skip this little section right here because you've already done that. Your body paragraphs, be sure you consider the audience and the purpose. You are explaining to the audience why something is better than something else, or why you like one thing over another. And be sure your examples clearly explain the topic that you are talking about. And each body paragraph should have one idea. So in your thesis statements, I ask that you include a plan of development, or 3 points. Each body paragraph should talk about one of those points. Be sure you're providing transitions, and be sure you have a concluding paragraph. If you need more information about conclusion paragraphs, go back to week 1 and watch the video about body paragraphs and conclusion paragraphs. So the body of an exemplification essay should kind of go like this. Your first body paragraph should start with your topic sentence, and then your general evidence, and then specific evidence. So your specific evidence is your example. And then your commentary is where you discuss why that example makes your topic the best out of whatever. And you're going to repeat that process for body paragraph 2, and you're going to repeat that process for body paragraph 3. So while you're choosing evidence, one of the easiest ways to decide the evidence that you want to use is you already have a thesis statement. You did that in week 1. Begin listing as many examples about your topic as possible. Write down everything. Just make a list. No matter how silly, how ludicrous, how small, how large, make a list of everything that you can think of. And then after you have written down everything that you can think of, look at your list and pick your strongest 2 or 3 for each point in your plan of development. And those are going to be the examples that you use in your body paragraphs. So how do you organize your body paragraphs? Now, you may have to rearrange your thesis statement. You may have to list your items in your plan of development in a different order depending on your evidence. But when you are writing your body paragraphs, the first thing in your plan of development in your thesis statement should be your first body paragraph. The second point in your thesis statement is your second body paragraph. Your third point is your third body paragraph. But you need to arrange those things from least to most controversial, or most simple to the most complex. You always go from the smallest piece of evidence to the largest. You want that third body paragraph to be your best piece of evidence because you want to end your paper with your strongest point. So go back and look at your thesis statement and make sure that those points in your plan of development are arranged from the smallest idea to the largest, or the weakest idea to the strongest idea. And then your body paragraph should follow that same order. So this slide is an example of how an exemplification paper is kind of organized. It's sort of like an outline. We are going to talk about outlines in a little more detail in another video for this week, but this is just kind of an overview of how a paper would be organized. So we have our thesis statement up here. Some people treat animals like humans. Now, this thesis statement doesn't have a plan of development included, but we know that we have these 3 points that we want to talk about in this middle row. So one example that some people treat animals like humans is they give pets human names. So our first body paragraph is going to be about giving pets human names. That is our general evidence. So that point in your thesis statement, that is your general evidence. And then our specific evidence is an example of a human giving a pet a human name. So Spot is no longer Spot is no longer man's best friend, but Maggie could be. So some people no longer name their animals silly names like Spot, but we might give our animals human names like Maggie or George or Sam. That example, that is your specific evidence. So point number 2, dress pets in human clothes. So that is their general evidence. We dress pets in human clothes. And then we give an example. Small dogs like miniature Yorkies often wear rhinestone-studded collars and dresses. So it gives us a specific example of clothes that a pet may wear. And then the last point in this paper, they act like parents. People act like parents. An example of people acting like parents is that they call themselves a dog mom or a dog dad. So this is kind of an example. You cannot use this animal topic for your exemplification essay because I've already given you the example. So I don't want anybody kind of copying exactly what I've done, but you definitely can copy the format that I have provided for you. But this is an example of kind of how each body paragraph is laid out. So this is body paragraph 1, this will be body paragraph 2, and then this over here will be body paragraph 3. So minimum requirements for this essay. So if you do not meet these minimum requirements, then you will automatically receive a failing grade for this assignment. So please be sure that you meet these requirements. Your paper has to be 2 full pages of text, okay? 2 full pages means that the writing on that second page goes all the way to the bottom of the page. It has to be 2 full pages. 1.5 pages is not 2 pages. If you fill up the first page and you kind of go over a little bit on the second page, that is not 2 pages. 2 pages means 2 full pages of text. If you don't meet the minimum length requirement, then you don't meet the minimum standards for this essay. The essay should be written with MLA format, so that includes but is not limited to having a header in the upper right corner, having a heading. The heading should be student name, teacher name, class name, and date. You should have a title, and you should have double spacing throughout. There is an MLA video in week 1 to make sure that you have met all of those MLA formatting rules. Your paragraphs, you should have 5 paragraphs. You should have an introduction paragraph, 3 body paragraphs, and a conclusion paragraph. And the formality of this paper should be academic. It should be formal academic writing. So what that means is that you have no first or second person pronouns. There's a list of first and second person pronouns in that English 101 packet that I provided in week 1. You should not have abbreviations or contractions. There are also other words in that 101 packet from week 1 that you should not use. Words like, if you're using like as a filler, then you should not use like as a filler. The word kids, kids are baby goats. So if you write kids in your paper and you're not talking about baby goats, then you are not being formal. The formal word for kids are children or adolescents or young adults or teenagers or students, but kids formally are baby goats. So there is a list of words to avoid in that English 101 packet so that your writing is as formal as possible. That's all for the exemplification essay. You should write this essay using the thesis statement that you turned in week 1. That's the topic of this week's essay. And it is due by 11:59 Sunday night, June the 5th. If you have any questions at all, please email me. Have a good day.